You clean your house, pull tangled hair from a brush, or groom your dog, and then you ball it all up and toss it in the trash. That is what most of us do. You assume it is just waste, dead cells with absolutely no value left. But every time you throw that handful of hair away, you are discarding one of the most concentrated, slow-release nitrogen sources nature ever designed. A few days later, you drive to the garden center. You spend $20 on a bag of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer. You sprinkle it on the soil, expecting a quick burst of green leaves. And you do see that. But that sudden burst always comes with a cost. Fast-acting nitrogen burns through the organic matter in your garden. It drains the life out of the microbial network beneath the surface. By the next season, your soil is harder and more tired. You have to drive back and buy another bag just to keep your vegetable beds on life support. A cycle of dependence begins with this very habit. There is another way, a very old, very quiet method that does not cost a single cent. It does not require you to wait in line at a store or carry heavy bags. It is a hidden, long-term feeding system that nourishes your plants steadily for months, even years, without ever burning a tender root. I am going to show you how this system works. But first, you need to understand that relying on bagged fertilizer is not your fault. The industry taught you a flawed model. They convinced us that a garden is a hungry machine, constantly needing to be pumped with fast-acting chemical fuel. They overlooked the fact that soil is an independent, living body, perfectly capable of breaking down the most complex protein structures on its own. They simplified nature just to sell you a convenient product. You failed to build a self-sustaining ecosystem simply because you followed the rules they set. Today, we are going to step back. We are going to reclaim the materials you already have in your home and put them exactly where nature intended. Long before chemical factories began producing synthetic fertilizers, gardeners understood the value of what they had on hand. In the 19th century, it was common practice to gather wool scraps, animal fur, and human hair to dig into the vegetable beds. They did not do this out of desperation. They did it because it works. It was a proven system for maintaining fertile ground year-round, long before the industry told us we needed their products. The science behind this hidden method is actually quite simple. Hair and fur are primarily made of a structural protein called keratin. This is the same tough material that makes up your fingernails. Because it is a protein, it is densely packed with nitrogen. In fact, human hair contains roughly 15 to 16% nitrogen by weight. To put that into perspective, that is a higher nitrogen concentration than almost any bagged organic fertilizer you will find at the store. The industry knows this, but they also know that they cannot patent your hair and they cannot sell it back to you. The magic of keratin lies in its strength. Commercial nitrogen is designed to be water-soluble. The moment it rains, it dissolves, flooding your plants with more food than they can handle, and then washing away into the groundwater. It is a system built on spikes and crashes. Hair behaves entirely differently. Its tight structure means it will not dissolve in water. It requires the active life in your soil, the fungi and the bacteria, to slowly break it down. This slow decomposition is not a disadvantage. It is the core of true garden independence. When you bury hair in your backyard, you are setting up a slow-release feeding station. The microorganisms dismantle the keratin piece by piece. They release the nitrogen into the soil steadily, day by day, for months or even years. Your plants take exactly what they need, exactly when they need it, without the stress of chemical burns. This is how you build a resilient family garden without chemicals. You step away from the cycle of buying and applying, and you trust the natural systems that have always been there. Now that you understand the value of this material, let us look at the system. How do you actually use hair and fur in your backyard without causing problems? There are 3 simple, proven ways to return this nitrogen to the soil. The first and safest method is through your compost pile. Whenever you brush your dog, groom your cat, or clean out your own hairbrush, simply take that handful and toss it into the compost. Because hair is incredibly high in nitrogen, it acts as a very potent green material. You must balance it. Make sure you mix it well with brown materials like dried autumn leaves, shredded cardboard, or wood chips. Over the next 6 to 9 months, the natural heat and moisture in the pile will soften the tough keratin. The microbes will dismantle it completely, turning it into a rich, dark humus. If you do not have a compost bin, you can use the direct burial method. I have used this technique for years when preparing new vegetable beds. Dig a small trench or a hole about 6 to 8 inches deep. Place a loose handful of hair or fur at the bottom. It is important to bury it at this depth so that local birds or rodents do not try to dig it up for nesting material. Cover it with soil and then plant your tomatoes or peppers right on top. As the roots grow deeper into the earth, they will eventually reach this hidden nitrogen reserve. It will feed them steadily for the entire summer. This system also works beautifully for container gardening. When you are potting a new plant, place a small mat of hair at the very bottom of the pot, just above the drainage holes. Fill the rest of the pot with your soil and plant as usual. Over the next 1 to 2 years, every time you water, the moisture encourages soil bacteria to slowly break down that layer. It becomes a built-in, slow-drip feeding system. You will save money because you will not need to constantly buy liquid fertilizers to keep your potted plants healthy. Just remember one practical rule. Be careful with heavily dyed or chemically treated human hair. The harsh chemicals from a salon can linger. It is best to stick to natural, untreated hair, the fur from your family pets, or even the feathers from your backyard chickens. Let us look at the actual value of this low-cost material. If you buy a standard bag of commercial urea, you might spend $20. It gives your plants a quick rush of nitrogen, but much of it washes away with the first heavy rain. You are left with depleted soil and an empty wallet. Now look at the hair from your own brush or the fur from your family dog. It costs you absolutely nothing. It sits quietly in the earth, feeding your backyard garden year-round without chemicals. This is not just a clever trick. It is a proven system for building long-term independence. When you embrace this hidden method, you are doing much more than saving a few dollars. You are stepping away from a fragile commercial supply chain. You are building soil that grows stronger and more resilient every single season. This means your family has a more reliable, steady source of food. You stop viewing your garden as an empty space where you constantly have to dump synthetic products. Instead, you start seeing it as a self-sustaining cycle. The earth feeds your plants feed you, and in a very real, practical way, you return that life back to the soil. It makes sense. It works. You do not have to change everything today. I do not want you to stress over overhauling your entire routine. Start with one bed. The next time you sweep the floor after a haircut or brush your pet, take that small handful of fur and bury it beneath a new pepper or tomato plant. Try one method this season. Watch how the plant responds over the coming months. Observe the soil and learn how it slowly digests the keratin in its own time. I think you will find a quiet, deep satisfaction in knowing exactly what is feeding your food. Look deeply at this reality once more to see the true power of independence. A bag of chemical fertilizer you buy at the store is an industrial product born from massive energy consumption and fossil fuels. It is designed to vanish, forcing you to return and buy more. In contrast, that small bundle of hair in your hand is a perfect biological structure. It contains 16% nitrogen, a figure that is incredibly high when compared to even the most expensive bagged organic fertilizers on the market. The industry understands the power of keratin perfectly well, but they cannot bottle and sell you something your own body produces every day. They choose silence, directing your attention toward bright packaging and promises of instant growth. Gardening this way is about much more than saving a few dollars. It is a complete shift in mindset. When you begin to bury these forgotten nutrients back into the earth, you are starting to build a system that no longer relies on external supply chains. You are creating a backyard that is capable of nourishing itself. Your tomato plants and your leafy greens will no longer experience the nitrogen spikes caused by synthetic chemicals. Instead, they grow with a quiet, steady strength, developing deep and healthy root systems because their food source is released slowly and reliably right beneath them. I have seen so many new gardeners fall into the trap of being in a hurry. They want to see results in 24 hours, and they believe that chemicals are the only answer. But my years of experience have taught me that what grows too fast is often the first to fail when faced with pests or harsh weather. A truly healthy garden needs time and patience. By using hair and fur, you are working with the rhythm of nature. You are learning to trust the tiny microorganisms working tirelessly in the dark of the soil. This is the true freedom of the gardener, not having to worry about rising fertilizer prices and never having to wonder about chemical residues on your family's dinner table. Have you ever wondered why ancient forests remain lush and vibrant for thousands of years without any human intervention or bags of chemical fertilizers? It is because nature never wastes anything. Every fallen feather, every small animal that returns to the earth becomes part of a massive circular nutrient system. When you bring hair and fur back to your garden, you are not just fertilizing. You are actually mimicking that perfect cycle right in your own family space. The biggest difference between a dependent gardener and an independent one lies in the ability to see value in what others call waste. I want you to understand that the power to create a thriving backyard is already in your hands. And sometimes it is literally on your own head. Reclaiming this old knowledge brings a strange, quiet peace. You will no longer feel the need to rush to the store every time a leaf turns slightly yellow from a lack of nitrogen. You will no longer worry about the negative effects of chemicals on your children's health as they run through the garden. Instead, you will learn to observe, to wait, and to trust the miracle of life happening beneath the soil. Your garden is no longer a financial burden. It is a testament to the wisdom of living with natural systems. Start with the smallest thing, a handful of hair every day, and you will see your land revive in the most powerful way you have ever witnessed. That is the path to true independence, the kind that no chemical corporation can ever sell to you.